What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. I was going to do kind of a Challengers Elite review video this weekend, but something happened last night in regards to Challengers World reacting to a TacticalRab clip. I want to talk about sort of an overall issue with overreaction that I think is happening too much in the Call of Duty scene. And I want to talk on just in general about where Challengers is at, exposure, the future, what can be improved. Just kind of a small conversation about that. But in general, I wanted to make a video in regards to everybody's crazy reaction to the TacticalRab clip. So let's dive in. All right, to give everybody a little bit of context, earlier this week, Boston Academy was playing Gravity, Geo, Lau, and Wiz in the Challengers Elite Series, and they went to map 4 in the series, and Boston Academy was down quite big, almost about 200 points. They managed to come back and win by about 9 seconds. I mean, it was extremely crazy comeback. We don't normally see comebacks of that length in a Challengers match, a pro match. And I think it was extremely typical out of Boston that they were able to make the comeback happen. Now, I should clarify that sort of unfortunately the map after this was a Hotel S&D, and that Gravity and the boys did end up winning that and the series. So for Boston Academy, the comeback was great, but it didn't really end up mattering in the grand scheme of things as they actually ended up losing the map. But typical, they were able to pull it off. And there was a decent amount of gas, I think, for Boston Academy on social media and on Reddit over the last couple of days for the comeback. Again, keeping in mind they didn't win the series. And things I thought were positive until this tweet hit the timeline last night. It was a clip from a TacticalRab video talking about the comeback. I want us to watch the whole video and then we'll scroll through and take a look at some of the reactions because I think people didn't actually end up watching the clip in its entirety.
Now, at the end of the day, this is a Challengers Elite game. It's not a Pro League game. It's not a game that matters a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. And that's why it's always going to be on a lower, I don't think this is ever going to be going in. Like we made a video just a couple of weeks ago on Breaking Point, right after the Vegas versus Thieves comeback to say, okay, what are the greatest hardpoint comebacks in COD history? We looked at a few across the last several years. And, this isn't probably going to be going in those compilations because it's a Challengers game. And we've seen before that public match players or even pro players have gone into like pub hardpoint lobbies, gone down 249 to 0, maybe even in ranked play and stuff, and made the comeback 250, 249. It's just something that's been done in the past for content. Of course, that's not on the competitive level like this is, but yeah, this is still remarkable. You've got to give credit to Boston Breach. I don't know how they managed to pull this off, the Academy team, of course.
All right, so like a couple of things to keep in mind here. One is how the tweet is actually written here. A bit disappointing to hear that someone with probably the second biggest voice in COD basically saying that challengers don't matter. That's not at all what TacticalRab said in the video. I think his point was, yes, this is a really cool comeback. Boston Academy should be tipped for it. But relative to CDL comebacks we've seen on LAN, in majors, challengers comebacks we've seen in finals, at the end of the day, this is sort of a first match in the league group stage. And yes, it's a cool comeback and one of the biggest ones we've seen in a while. It doesn't actually matter, and I don't think he's making that up. I don't think it really matters overall in sort of the full direction of even how this stage of Challengers Elite is going to play out. So I think he was correct in saying that, and I think Rotation Ant, when he sort of mentioned that in this tweet, I think he kind of missed all the context here. And so we start to see some reactions from the Challengers community, and I want to also color the context on when the Challengers community has feedback or issues. Keep in mind that for a lot of the players, aspirationally, they're trying to either get in the CDL or get back in the CDL. So everybody's got their own agenda when it comes to reacting to certain things like this. But I love my guy, Alan. I hold shift. He does a lot for the Challenger scene, whether it's production, casting. He's done segments on the CDL broadcast. This guy does a lot for the Challenger scene. But again, someone that I don't think really watched the whole clip and reacted to it to the way that he said. And I want to, at the end of the video, kind of address this point as well, because I think there's nuance to it. And again, we can scroll through and you see, Challengers players reacting, like GodRx is obviously upset. I do think HW Payne here, who is a Challengers player, has a really good point. I do think Rab, by mentioning the whole like pub comeback thing, was maybe taking it a bridge too far. I think he could have picked sort of a different sort of analogy in that situation. But I don't think that was ultimately what he was trying to say. I think, again, Rab's sort of major point was that this was a Challengers Elite group stage match. They didn't actually end up winning the series. So, yes, comeback is cool. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the direction of things. And I think the example he gave, right, was the Vegas one beating Thieves. Like, that map was massive. Vegas ended up getting a pretty good placing at that event because they were able to make the comeback and beat Thieves in that series. And that may mean down the road that Vegas might actually have taken those 10-ish points and been able to qualify for champs in the 8 spot, which, by the way, the Vegas franchise, former Paris franchise, has not been in champs the last couple of years. And again, I don't want to like keep, and this is the last kind of reaction we'll take a look at. I don't want to keep harping on it. I just think a lot of people saw the headline, maybe skimmed through the clip and didn't watch the full context. Because I think when you say this tweet, like the value of elite hurts and we'll keep moving forward, these stories must be told, and to see the competition this spicy makes it all much better. Support is not needed all around. That is not at all what TacticalRab said in this video. Someone's just trying to make a point based on a headline, which I thought was kind of whack. So let's finish up the video talking about the challenger scene and kind of where it's at relative to the past few years of amateur competition. So going back to like the CWL era, you know, when people were playing in sort of the tier below, there were more paths to pro than there are now. Like you had an opportunity to qualify into the pro league in the beginning of the season. So like non-established orgs had an opportunity to get into that spot. And then throughout the year at every major, you know, we had open bracket teams make it to the pro side. Now in the CDL, you don't necessarily have that org path. You do in the first event of the season. I think when we talked to Daniel Sai on the flank couch at Major 1 earlier this season, the end of last year, I think they want to repeat that same process. So we'll have at least one pro-am, but it's not the level we used to have in the CWL era. That being said, I think the biggest change that's happened in the challenger side is a more fleshed out sort of recurring competition that happens called Challengers Elite. So if you're sort of new, I know I've talked about a lot in my videos, but maybe just a quick 101 is, you know, whilst CDL Pro League qualifiers are running during those 3 weeks, in the middle of the week, you have this Challengers Elite competition in North America and Europe, in which you have like the 8 to, I think it's 12 now, best teams in each region competing in this cool group stage and then bracket competition. And first place in each region is like 20K. The first place is 5K each for players. So there's a lot of money and a lot of exposure. And I think the big thing this year, you know, back in the YouTube era of the CDL, we had guys like Zuma and Zin and Shotzi occasionally watching Challengers Elite. But I've noticed now that more often than not, almost all of the big competitive Call of Duty creators, especially with North American Challengers Elite are all watching the competition. So I think when people say like, oh, like, you know, we're always struggling with the exposure, getting challengers out there, I would argue that right now, even compared towards the CWL era of Call of Duty, I think there's more eyeballs on challengers now. And look, I think it's worked out well. We've seen a lot of players get called up. There have been a number of challengers players in the past few years that have made it to the CDL and are there. I don't even need to sit there and list them all. Go take a look at teams, go to COD Wiki and look up every team. You'll find likely a couple of players or at least one player on most, if not all teams, that at some point played in challengers or played in the amateur bracket and worked their way up. There are a couple exceptions. And I think a great example, if I am going to name one, is look what's happening with Optic, right? They finally took a chance on a challengers player, brought up Dan Ghosty from the Decimate Gaming Squad that won at the Boston Open. And it's been a good pickup, and they just got second end event. And Dan looks to be an important part of the Optic team going forward. So yes, for me, I think when people kind of took this the wrong way and said that, oh, people are just kind of poking holes, I think the challenger scene is on a good path. This is not to say, by the way, that I don't think there are areas where challengers can't be improved. You know, just to name a couple, one is I think we need more than one pro-am a season. I think we need to find a way for CDL orgs to be incentivized to have academy teams. I have a number of ideas, and I think that's more better suited for another video because I have like 8 to 10 different ideas on how you could potentially do that. Some are kind of crazier than others. And I think the third thing for me, and I've talked to people at the CDL about this, Challengers Elite competition is great, but figuring out how to have the playoffs and the finals for Challengers Elite on LAN would be a really good addition to competition, and take the online component out of the competition away at sort of the end of it. Unfortunately for challengers, they don't necessarily, or even at that end, play on the same servers that the pros do, the sort of hosted servers. So it is a little bit of host wars in challengers sometimes. So I'd like to see that competition move to LAN at the end, considering they're playing for like a decent amount of money when we're talking about the winners finals, losers finals, grand finals of Challengers Elite in both NA and EU. So that's just 3 ideas I think that can improve the challengers scene. So I think in summary on just sort of my overall big picture challengers thoughts, I think there's definitely improvement to be had, but some of this like boogeyman-ish of it's like struggling and this and that, I don't really agree with. And then on top of that, everybody overreact to this clip. And please, I just, a PSA, man, I know this got posted late at night, like everybody's sitting in bed or sitting somewhere else and just kind of scrolling their phone and just looked at the headline and reacted. Watch the video next time before reacting to a tweet. I think everybody completely took what Rab said out of context. They heard the pub kids thing that he said and didn't really take it the way that he phrased it. So caution everybody, just be careful when you read headlines and tweets and you don't watch the video, because it may not really kind of explain the content you're watching, and it really had nothing to do with what Rab said in the video. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this one. I wasn't really going to make this video until this happened last night. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, well, I think I should probably say something, because I feel like the COD community, we get to like the spring, people start like overreacting too much to things. I think it's just because there's just like not as much to talk about. We're in the middle of the season. Some maps are really boring. We're kind of getting into sort of the close-ish to the dog days of summer. We have a whole season of spring to get there. But I think people start like trying to pick fights a little and just sort of nitpick. And I felt like this is one where the public reaction didn't make a lot of sense to me, because it seemed like people didn't watch the context. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Like, if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. We're going to have some good summary content we already had 1 day of Pro League matches for this major, and it's crazy. I think tomorrow's video, I'm likely going to do sort of my thoughts on the Minnesota Rocker home series. We'll take a look at sort of how the event was ran. There was a really cool walkthrough video that we'll react to tomorrow, as well as get my sort of reactions of how it looked on broadcast. And I think the home series concept might be something that gets repeats, so we'll speak about it more in our next video. So like, if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and we'll see you guys on the next one.